Hello and welcome to another episode of THP Tutorials. In today's video, we'll be continuing with our series on operations management. This is the ninth chapter and it's about capacity planning. Alright, so in the course of this video, we'll be talking about relevant concepts in capacity, right? We'll look at concepts like design capacity, effective capacity, actual output, and other crucial or essential concepts that is necessary for us to get a perfect understanding in capacity, right? So let's begin. What's capacity? Capacity is the upper limit or ceiling on the load that an operating unit can handle, right? Capacity also includes equipment space, and employee skills. The basic question in capacity handling are: what kind of capacity is needed, how much is needed, and when is it needed, right? So these are what it all boils down to, right? When you talk about capacity, right? What capacity do we need? How much of it do we need? And when do we need it by? Right. So capacity can be talked about in terms of equipment, space, and even the skills of an employee. Right. So capacity is the upper limit or the ceiling on the load that an operating unit can handle, right? So capacity of an equipment would be the upper limit or ceiling on the load. This should be off, right? So of the load that an equipment can handle, right? Right, or the upper limit or ceiling of the space that a room can handle, right? So that's what capacity is all about. So more on capacity says here that the throughput or the number of units a facility can hold, receive, store, or produce in a period of time, right? So this is also talking more about what capacity is, right? The throughput or the number of units a facility can hold. So whenever we see or we hear throughput, it's talking about what? The number of units a facility or a unit can hold. So that's a or of a system. We're talking more about throughput in the slides to come. Very well. So this is the meaning of throughput. Number of units a facility can hold. Right. So capacity also determines fixed cost. It also determines if demand will be satisfied, right? Because if your capacity is less than your demand, then you will not be able to meet your demand, right? So your capacity will also determine whether or not you would be able to meet your demand or also satisfy your demand. Right? And it says that there are 3 time horizons. We'll talk more about that. But before we go any further, let's talk about design and effective capacity, right? I mentioned this earlier. So what I thought is design capacity. Or design capacity is the maximum theoretical output of a system, right? The maximum theoretical output. So let's pay attention to this word, theoretical, right? And it's normally expressed as a rate. Is this is just saying that it's expressed as a percentage. Very good. Now, effective capacity is the capacity a firm expects to achieve given current operating constraints. Are you with me? Yes. Very good. So let's say that, for example, a classroom has a design capacity of 100 students. That would be the design capacity. That would be the theoretical output or the maximum theoretical output of that system or of that class. Now, when you talk about effective capacity, that would be the capacity a firm expects to achieve given current operating constraints. So let's say that maybe in that classroom there are probably 100 chairs, and one something happens, and let's say a number of chairs in that class get destroyed, right? We might say that due to that constraint, right, once those chairs are destroyed, that becomes a constraint, something that is restraining the capacity of the classroom. So due to those constraints, those destroyed chairs, we might say that the effective capacity that of the classroom would be, let's say, 70 students or 70 people, right? And that's what effective capacity is about. You expect to host 70 people in a class due to the current operating constraints being what? The broken chairs, right? Now, effective capacity is often lower than design capacity. Very good. Now, before I continue, we see you have design capacity and you have effective capacity. Then there's something also known as actual output. Now, actual output is simply the real or actual number of people or number of units that the system can hold, in real time. So that one, it has something to do with, the theoretical output or the expected capacity, but it's more like what actually is, right? If you were to match people into their classroom, and let's say only 50 people were able to be well seated, then the actual output of the class would be 50. So let's move on. Right. So these are, what? Say there are various capacities. And here I'm talking about design capacity. Very good. So that's because you satisfied the maximum obtainable output. Is theoretical. And the effective capacity is the expected variations. Right? The maximum capacity is subject to planned and expected variations, such as maintenance, coffee breaks, scheduling conflicts. Right? So these are some of the operating constraints I'm talking about. Right? It could be maintenance, maybe coffee breaks, scheduling conflicts. So these are more examples of operating constraints. Now we have what? Actual output, and that's the unexpected variations and demand. And you say is the rate of output actually achieved, right? So keyword actually achieved, right? It cannot exceed the effective capacity. It is subject to random disruptions like machine breakdown, absenteeism, material shortages, and most importantly, the demand. Right? So that's what actual output is talking about, right? So these are the three things that you need to always have in mind. Design capacity. Now, see this here. See, this is what I want us to take note of. Over here, often lower than. One second. Right. Says often lower than design capacity. So that is just a clue in your questions on capacity. You would always have to identify your design capacity and then your effective capacity, then your actual output. So you can just, these are clues to identifying them. The effective capacity is often what? Lower than the design capacity. Most of the time, it's always lower. And here it stated that what? The actual output cannot exceed am I doing like that? Right, so the actual output cannot exceed effective capacity. Right, so that's something to pay attention to. It cannot exceed effective capacity. So it would probably be in that order. Design capacity is most likely to be the highest figure you are given. Effective capacity would be the second highest, and then the actual output would be the least. Right. Now, why is design capacity, effective capacity, and actual output necessary for us? Well, it's necessary because that's what we use to calculate utilization and efficiency. Right. Yeah, what utilization and what efficiency. Now it says utilization is a percentage is a percent of design capacity actually achieved. Right. So that's utilization. Is the percentage of design capacity actually achieved. So the formula is actually utilization is equal to actual output over design capacity times 100, right? So you can say that what the efficiency is also what the efficiency here we can conclude that efficiency would be what the percent of effective capacity actually achieved, right? So utilization uses what design capacity and efficiency uses effective capacity, right? So now this is talking about designing and measuring capacity. So these are just iterations, right? Now, see, design capacity is the maximum output rate or service capacity an operation process or facility is designed for, right? So the keyword here will be what is designed for, right? The theoretical capacity. So that's where the design for is coming from, right? So maybe we design a classroom to take what 100 people, right? So the effective capacity is the design capacity minus allowances such as personal time and maintenance, right? So the allowances here is standing in for what current operating constraints. So the design capacity minus current operating constraints. That's what is essentially what effective capacity is, right? So yeah, this is an example that I will be solving in a practical session. So just check that out if after you are done watching this one. These are the answers. We won't spend time on those. We'll handle that in the practical section. Right, right. So remember importance of capacity decisions. Right, capacity decisions. Why is it important? So I will draw your mind here to what the first chapter, the first week. That's what I would. The 10 decisions, right? If you go and check, capacity is part of those decisions. So this whole slide is touching on capacity decision, right? So why is it important? Well, capacity decisions are important because they impact the firm's ability to meet future demands, right? Yeah. So your capacity is what will determine whether or not you meet your future demands. It also affects operating cost, and it's a major determinant of initial cost. It's a major determinant of initial cost, the cost that you incur in the beginning. It also involves long-term commitment and affects competitiveness, and also affects the ease of management. So what it's saying that basically, if you get your capacity decision right, you considerably lower your operating cost and your initial cost. You also, in the long term, since it's a long-term commitment, you'd also have a bright future, or it's going to go a long way to help in the long term, and to also affect your ability to compete and your management, difficult, the how easy your management will be, or fluent to be. Capacity affects all these decisions, so it's very important, right? So when it comes to capacity decisions, there are three strategies that a firm can employ. The first is the leading. You have the leading. Then there's the following. And there's what? Tracking. Now the following is also referred to as what? Lagging. 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 And it says we have tracking or matching. In case you come across different um, terms for that in your own personal research, right? So, what's the leading about? So, the leading, it says what? You build capacity in anticipation of future demand increases, right? You build your capacity in anticipation of future demand increases. So, another way you can put this is that you will lead capacity, you will lead demand with capacity, right? You anticipate the increases in demand, and then you build to that capacity before those increases will come about. So as and when they do occur, you would be ready for anything. Then that's what the following. With that one, it's just the opposite, right? You build capacity when demand exceeds current capacity. So with the following, you wait for demand to increase before you come and what? Build your capacity. The third is tracking, right? So it's similar to the following strategy, but adds capacity in relatively small increments to keep pace with increasing demand. Right. So what are the phrase here? Relatively small increments. How does that differ? So you can just put it this way. Let's say for the following, you have capacity here, right? Capacity. Then you have demand. Capacity. So with that one, let's say your current capacity is at 100, right? And then you wait for demand to get somewhere like 150. Before you come and build your capacity to what? 150 as well. That's how the following works. So you see that 50 is a huge difference. Imagine if for every, so this 150 is the number of customers, right? Who are able to, who are able and ready to buy your product on the spot, right? So imagine if you are selling one product for 10 cedis, that's what 500 cedis that you could be losing. So it's a huge difference, right? So you wait for your demand to get to 150 before you come and build your capacity. But with the tracking or the matching, it's something like maybe your demand gets to 110, then you come and build your capacity to 110. If the demand gets to 120, then you go to 120, right? But with the following, you wait at the 100 until it gets to somewhere really significant before you come and build your capacity to account for that. Very good. Alright, so let's keep this one. Right, managing demand. Right, capacity is all about managing demand. So you have three options. So, sorry, this is speaking to three situations where demand can be managed. The first is what? When demand exceeds capacity. What do you do? What do you do when the people who want to buy your products are more than the people you can actually sell to? Well, you can curtail or regulate demand by raising prices, right? And you schedule for longer lead time, right? Because even if, and this raising your price is very good, because when you raise your price, it will also increase your demand. It will reduce your demand, but you'll still be getting money from, you'll be getting money to make up for the demand that you're losing, right? Imagine if 100 people are buying your product. Your product goes for 5 cities, per unit, and then your demand suddenly increases to 150, and you raise your price on 5 cities to 8 cities, right? and then your demand reduces to let's say 120, so that at the end of the day you should be able to sell out your 100 units. Yeah, exactly. And that's so out of the 150, you're only able to serve 100 people, right? So even when you increase the price, you still be able to sell out your products and you still make profits more than usual. So that's a way of managing demand when your demand is more than your capacity, right? But the long-term solution is to what? Increase your capacity to serve those people that you're not able to serve. That's a long-term solution. And the second scenario is what? The opposite. When capacity exceeds demand, right? When that happens, it means that you have product, not enough people are buying from you. You have to find a way to stimulate the market, right? Maybe you run advert campaigns, or you change your marketing style, and you can also make changes to your product to attract more people to buy. And on the third is what? Adjusting to seasonal demands. How do you adjust to seasonal demands? You produce products with complementary demand patterns. Right, so that's that. You produce demand with complementary demand patterns. Right. Very good. So yeah, so let's look at the tactics for matching capacity to demand, right? The keyword here is what? Matching capacity to what? Demand. The first option is what? You make staffing changes, right? Your staff, the people working for you, you make changes. The second is what? Adjusting your equipment. So in the case where your capacity is smaller than your demand, you can sell some of your machines. You can sell some of the existing equipment that you're using, right? Or if your capacity is less than your demand, you can purchase more equipment or add more machines to increase your capacity or to match it with what? Your demand, right? The third is to what? Improve your processes to increase your throughput, right? Remember, so that the throughput is the number of units that system can hold, receive, or store within a period of time, right? So you want to increase your throughput. And you can also redesign your products to also, by redesigning your products, you can facilitate more throughput, so you can store more products. And you can also add flexibility to your process in order to meet your changing product preferences, right? Customers' preferences are always changing, so you can add flexibility to your process so you can meet the changing preferences of your customers. And the sixth is what? Closing facilities, and that would pertain to when you have more capacity than your demand, right? When you have more capacity than your demand, you can close some of your facilities to match capacity to demand, right? You might ask that why is it important for capacity to match demand? You see, it's important because you have to get it right. When your capacity is less than your demand, you are losing money. When your capacity is also more than your demand, you're also losing money, right? So you want to get that ideal, optimal point or stage whereby what you are storing is exactly what is being bought, right? So that helps you save a lot of money. So it's very important to always match your capacity to your demand, right? Then there's the service sector demand and capacity management, right? what we have been talking about so far pertain to what? The manufacturing sector, right? Products, firms that offer products. But what about the service sector? If you're in the service sector, how do you manage your capacity and demand? Right, so the demand management, where you can make appointments, reservations, first come first serve rule, right? That's how you manage your demand. Then your capacity management, you have full-time, temporary, and part-time staff, right? Because when you have a service, it's different, right? You're not offering a product. People are coming there for a service, so somebody has to be available to render that service. So you need full-time, temporary, and then part-time staff to be doing that for you. And you manage your demand by having your patient, your customers make appointments. You can also reserve bookings, and also what, the first come first serve. In capacity planning, this is another phase of it, where you have capacity analysis, and then what we'll talk about the bottleneck, what it is exactly. Right, so bottleneck analysis and the theory of constraints. Now, you said that each work area can have its own unique capacity, and capacity analysis determines the throughput capacity of workstations in the system. So the purpose of performing capacity analysis is to determine the throughput capacity of workstations in the system, right? So the throughput capacity of the workstations in the system is the number of units that the system can hold, receive, or store in a given period of time. Now, when you talk about bottleneck, it's simply referring to what? A limiting factor or constraint. So a bottleneck is simply what? A constraint or a limiting factor. Very good. A bottleneck has the lowest effective capacity in the system, right? So what's the effective capacity? The bottleneck, because in and of itself is what? Is a constraint. When I say that the constraint is what? Is the output we expect from a system or of a system due to current operating constraints or current operating limiting factors. Very good. So moving on. What's the bottleneck time? Right. Now the bottleneck time is the time of the slowest workstation. The one that takes the longest in a production system, right? So the bottleneck is the workstation that takes the longest in a production system. Then the throughput time is the time it takes a unit to go through production from start to end, right? So it takes a unit to go through production, like going through production from start to end. So we'll answer this question, but let me ask you first, so you can think about it. How then will you get the throughput time of a system? Very good. So you know what the bottleneck time is, right? The time it takes the slowest workstation. So is the time it takes the slowest workstation to produce. And throughput time is the time it takes a unit to go through production from start to end. From start to end. So we know, right? So more on capacity analysis, right? We are trying to determine the throughput capacity of a system. What's it about? So here you have a diagram, right? It says what? Two identical sandwich lines, right? And the lines have two workers and three operations. All completed sandwiches are wrapped, right? Right. So the lines have two workers and three operations. So let's take time to break down this diagram. Right. You have the order. This is the bread. You fill the bread. You toast the bread. You wrap the sandwich and then you deliver it. right? So it says that the sandwich line has three operations. What are those three operations? Is what? The first operation is what? The unit. Second is what? The filling. And the third is what? The toasting. Right. So why you might ask? It says that the lines have two workers. So why is the toaster line not two? Right. Now it is so because the the information we have here is telling us that what the line has two workers. It never said anything about the line having two toasters, right? So the toaster is a machine, right? But there are three operations and there are two workers. So the two workers will get the bread, they'll use 15 seconds to prepare the bread, then they'll use 20 seconds to fill the bread, right? But they only have one toaster, right? So the toaster can only do one bread at a time. That's why the toaster diagram is only one. Are you getting it? No, so the order and then the wrap, those are not operations, right? That's the order. It's saying that it will take the customer 30 seconds to make their order. Once the order has been made, or orders have been made, well, you have a worker here and a worker there. They'll prepare the bread 15 seconds. They'll fill the bread in 20 seconds. Then they'll toast the bread one at a time. From there, the bread is wrapped or delivered. Right. So what's the throughput time of this system? What's the throughput time of the system? Which one is the bottleneck? What's the bottleneck time? Right. So the two lines each deliver a sandwich every 20 seconds. Right. The two lines each deliver a sandwich every 20 seconds. Now, at 37.5 seconds, wrapping and delivering has the longest processing time and is a bottleneck, right? So the bottleneck is what? Because that's a workstation, right? This entire thing is a system, and these are the stations. So the wrap or delivery station is now the longest time, so that's a bottleneck. So capacity per hour is what? So that's what total seconds in an hour divided by the seconds used. So pay attention to that, right? If the system was measured in, if the time was given in minutes, when the order was 1 minute, bed was 2-3 minutes, we will not be dividing this by seconds. We're dividing it by 60. So it will have been 60 divided by 37.5 minutes. But this is in seconds, so everything has to be in seconds. So this figure, this 3600 that you are seeing over here is simply the number of seconds in 1 minute multiplied by the number of minutes in an hour. So 60 times 60 gives us what? 12,600. And you divide that by the bottleneck time, which gives us what? 96 sandwiches per hour. So the throughput time is what? 30 plus 15 plus 20 plus 20 plus 37.5, right? So you realize that what, when we were calculating the throughput time, it was 30 plus 15, right? We did not add this to this, but this is happening at the same time. So 15 seconds is happening at 50 seconds. So this whole thing is just 15 seconds because they're happening at the same time. So plus, so that is 15 that I've seen over here. This is also 20 seconds. This is also 20. Plus this, it's 37.5. That's 122.5 seconds. So that's the throughput time of the entire system. So this is how you calculate the throughput time. I hope you guess right. Very good. So this is another example. And this is a standard process for cleaning teeth. And cleaning and examining x-rays can happen simultaneously, right? So the cleaning and examining can happen simultaneously. So the check-in, customer takes x-ray, 2 minutes. Develops x-ray, 4 minutes. After the x-ray has been developed, the patient gets their tooth cleaned, it takes 24 minutes. And they get their x-ray exam, it takes 5 minutes. Then the dentist, that's his thing, and that takes 8 minutes. And the patient can check out, 6 minutes. So this is a bit tricky, right? So how do you calculate the throughput time? When you get here, how do you do the calculation? Let's have a look at that. But what's the bottleneck? Obviously this one, the cleaning, right? That will be the bottleneck. So BN standing for it. The bottleneck. Let's check this out. Alright, so capacity analysis. Our system over here, right? Now all possible parts must be compared, right? So the bottleneck is the hygienist at what? 34 minutes. Sorry, 24 minutes, right? So as I said, this is a bottleneck, right? See, bottleneck, we're right. Now the hourly capacity is what? 60 divided by 24. Alright, so whenever you hear hourly capacity, you use the bottleneck time to do that. Right, so the hourly capacity, so we always use the bottleneck time to do that. Right, this is 60 and not 3600 because this is in minutes. So number of minutes in an hour. Right, very good. So it's 2.5 patients. Now the X-ray exam part is what? 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 5 plus. So you see that when you're calculating the throughput time, is what? The X-ray part. So they calculated for this part. So is it 2, 2, 4, 5? That's 2, 2, 4, 5, 8, and 6. That gave us 27 minutes. They also calculated the what? The cleaning part time, which was 2, 2, 4, and then 24, coming down to 8 and 6. What does that tell you? So you calculate differently, right? So after you have done your two calculations, you come down and say what? The longest part involves the hygienist cleaning the teeth. The patient should complete in 46 minutes. So for the throughput time, you take the longest time. Okay. Very good. Or you take the part where the bottleneck is found. Right? So that's that. Now the theory, so what we just did was a bottleneck analysis. If you remember from the bottleneck analysis falls under the what? Falls under capacity analysis. So this one. This is what I'm talking about. Exactly. So I'm talking about the theory of constraints. Right, so the theory of constraints is what? It's a 5-step process for recognizing and managing limitations, right? So you are recognizing and managing your limitations. So that's what the theory of constraints is all about. It's about recognizing and managing your limitations. The first step is to identify the constraint. So that's what you use the bottleneck analysis for, right? You need to identify your constraint. The second step is to develop a plan for overcoming the constraints. And the third is to focus resources on accomplishing step 2. Right. So after you identify your constraint, which was step 1, you develop a plan for overcoming the constraint. So step 3 then comes what? You devote your resources to accomplishing your plan to overcome the constraints. Then the step 4 is what? Reduce the effects of the constraints by offloading work or expanding capability, right? So either you reduce the work on that constraint or you expand your capacity to ease the work and overcome the constraint. The first step is that once you overcome the constraint, you go back to step 1 and find a new constraint. That's that. This is bottleneck management. So how do you manage the bottleneck, the slowest station? You release work orders to the system at the pace of set by the bottleneck. So it says you release work orders to the system at the pace set by the bottleneck, right? So ignore this. At the pace set by the bottleneck, right? So you allow the bottleneck to determine how much work you put on the system. You don't just, so you have to consider that, right? So you look at the bottleneck before you start to give the whole system work. Now, the longest time at the bottleneck represents lost time for the whole system. So you take note of that. So the time that you lose on the bottleneck is the time. It is not just the bottleneck which is losing that time, but it's the entire system, right? Because it will bring about a delay. Now, 3 is increasing the capacity of a non-bottleneck station is a mirage, right? So this is what a mirage is, right? It's basically seeing things that are not there. So when you say mirage, it's meaning that focus on the bottleneck stations. Don't focus, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? So don't go and take a station that is not a bottleneck and be working on it. But rather focus your resources and your energy on the bottleneck stations, right? That's how you increase the capacity of the entire system. And the fourth is what? Increasing the capacity of a bottleneck increases the capacity of the host, right? So this is like a caution, right? Mirage is just saying that this is ineffective when you increase the capacity of a non-bottleneck, right? But when you increase the capacity of a bottleneck, you increase the capacity of the whole system. So thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.